Welcome to the third part of this series on the command pattern. So we did number one here, the receiver. We bound the receiver and the commanders together, or made that a possibility. Anyway, it's the client that actually does that, but it's possible now. We actually created these three over here, and we created the receiver, commands, everything. So now we're going to be looking into this number 3, which is going to be the invoker. And in this case, I'm not going to call this invoker. I think I'm going to call this something like, let's call it game manager or something like that. So I'm going to call it game manager. It's hard to see here. Game manager. So this is the name of this one. So the invoker is going to be kind of a game manager. I'm going to change this a bit for this purpose. So I'm going to make a generalized invoker that can actually send the commands one at a time. So I will implement a queue in here as well, so that I can have multiple commands saved inside of it and just add the commands to the invoker and then execute them one at a time, and then you'll see the power of that when we are creating games. So let's try to go for that. So using the same pattern, I'm going to add a new package, and that package we're going to call that invoker. And in the invoker package, just going to rename it. I misspelled it. It already exists. Oh, I better delete it then. Invoker, like that. And I did it again. I should put it here. So let's just do that. Invoker. That's it. And I can delete this one as well. Okay. So in that, I'm going to create a new class, and I'm calling that game manager. And the game manager, I'm going to make that kind of special. I'm going to do I want to have two methods in here, public, void, and I want to have something called add action. So it's going to be able to add some kind of fight action here. So I'm going to say fight action and action, like that. And maybe we should say that we can add more than one fight action. So we could actually do like that. Of course, I need to import that. Oh, let's make it simple for now. So I'm just going to be able to add an action, and what I want to add it to is I could make a normal array list. So normally we would do something like private list, and we would say fight action actions, and then create a new array list or something. But I think for this purpose, what I want to do is I actually want the invoker to be a list of actions like this. So first off, let's say that Jeppe here, he attacks the dragon with a fireball. So this is the first command that I'm going to do. So this is Jeppe, this is the actual dragon, and then dragon will fight back using fire, and then Jeppe will heal, etc. So I want all of these commands here, I want them to be in something like a list or something, so that I can kind of create the entire game and run it one at a time. So first run this, then run this, then run this, etc. So in order to do that, I could create a list and then take them one at a time and then delete them. But a better choice for that would actually be something like a queue. So what we can do with a queue is that if we have a queue like in the supermarket and someone gets in here, so the first one that gets in, people come in from here. This is the tail of the queue, just marking it with a T. This is the head of the queue. So this is where you buy your groceries. So the first person coming in here, let's call this person number 1, is set here, and the next person that goes in the queue comes here, etc. So this is like a standard queue. So this is what we also call a FIFO queue, because the first one that comes in is also the first one that comes out. First in, first out. And this is what we want in this queue. I want the first one that I set in this list is also the first one to go. So this is the first one, and then it takes this one and this one and this one. All while they can come from this side. So if this was a game actually running, it could take one from the queue and do the action while multiple actions are coming into the queue. So we could also call this like a FIFO buffer or something like that, but it's a queue. So let's try to use a queue for that. So instead of using this list, we can use this in Java called dequeue. And DE stands for double-ended. So it just means that it can be a FIFO queue or a FILO queue. So FILO, first in, last out, just means that the first one to be served is the last one to get in the queue. And this is not what we want in this case. That would mean that always this command, the last command coming in would be, I just think we're going to take it one at a time. So we need to import that dequeue interface. ArrayList doesn't support this interface, so ArrayList doesn't extend dequeue or implement anything from dequeue. So we need to do some other kind of data type. There's something called linked list we can use here, but normally we use something called actually array dequeue. This is the most often used one of them. Better than linked list in most cases, if not in all. So now we can add actions to this queue, and it's really easy. So we got just going to say actions, add, and then action. And if we go read about this add method, it says that it inserts the specified element into the queue, represented at the tail. So that means that it's going to be put into the queue like this, coming from behind, and then we want to take it from the front. Right now we don't have anything to take it, so I think we're going to create a method for that, and we're going to return a boolean just to say if there are anything left in the queue, because we're going to need that later. So we're going to say what are we going to call that? Something like do next execute. Do next action. I think I'm going to call do next action. And we're not going to put anything here like an action or anything. We're just going to say take one action from the queue and actually do that. We can do that by doing actions.pop. So the pop method will remove the first element of this queue here. And this will actually, pop will return that element and remove it from the queue. So now I have that element, I can just use the dot notation and then execute that. So I execute the action as the first action on the queue. I do the dot execute here on the first one, and it's automatically removed as well. So I wanted to return a boolean to say, do we have more actions to actually do? Because we don't want it to call an action on something that is actually not there. So I'm going to say that I want to return if not actions is empty. So if the list of actions is actually empty, I want it to return false. So if there are more actions in this list, it returns true. Okay? So it's not empty, right? So I return not empty here. So now we're actually done. So what we can do now is we can add actions to our small game manager, which represents the invoker, and we can actually do the different actions. Yeah, so that is it. I'm going to test all of this in the last part, which will be of this video, which will be the actual demo of the application. So that's it for the game manager, and for next we're going for this part. Thank you for watching this one, and see you in the next video.